name is Jay. Welcome to the show.
Who's the podcast host that you love the most? Coming to you live from coast to coast. Call me Thunderlip, Spaceman, or G. It's just me being native as I can be.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Gino Ray. This is Native as I Can Be, and very excited today. Where are you coming from, Melissa? I know you just moved.
Yep. I am in a little town outside of Salem in a little rural area.
Okay, all the way from outside of Salem. This is my guest, Melissa Bennett. Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
This is our very, very first time talking to each other outside of a couple messages back and forth. But I like that, actually. I think that'll open up a lot of pathways. How are you feeling today? What kind of energy am I working with?
I didn't have very much sleep last night. And I didn't take a nap today because I thought if I take a nap, I'm not going to sleep again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm tired.
Tired.
Yeah. But otherwise, everything went well. It was a good day. Everything went nice and smooth. And I sat in on a online lecture about the artist Gustav Klimt. And he did those paintings that have the gold on them. Like the Kiss is one of that's probably really famous.
Mm-hmm.
And this incredible scholar, art historian was giving this lecture. It was so good. So that was nice.
Well, that sounds nice. We're going to get into kind of what you do for a living or work, or however you would phrase that, here in a little bit. But what can you tell us about just kind of where you're from and how you grew up? And adoption has been a reoccurring theme on this podcast. And I think that has to do with the idea behind the show is kind of living between cultures, which is what a lot of mixed people feel. And then it turns out a lot of adoptees feel that way too. So what can you tell us about kind of how you grew up and just give us a little background.
Yeah. So I was adopted when I was 9 days old. And my adoptive parents, they kept it a surprise. They didn't tell anyone in their family that they were adopting. So on their end, when I showed up, I have all these baby pictures of them taking me to my new grandparents' house for the first time. And their faces are just like, one set is in total shock.
Yeah.
The other is like beaming. They're so happy there's a new baby, right?
Right.
But I found my birth mother and my birth family when I was like in my late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm now in my late 40s. And so it's been a while, but I now know the story of like what was happening on that side,
Mm-hmm.
of my birth mother's side at the time that I was born.
So where was this at? Where were you adopted from, and where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I was adopted from Portland.
Okay.
I'm a descendant of the Umatilla, Nez Perce, Sac and Fox, and Anishinaabe Nations. But when I was growing up, I knew only that I was Umatilla,
Mm-hmm.
part Umatilla. I knew I was mixed. I knew I was adopted, and I knew that I was Umatilla. I didn't find out the rest of it until much later. And I grew up on an onion farm in rural Oregon. So in actually where I'm at right now, they just harvested onions.
Oh.
My cousin lives across the street and they just harvested onions. But yeah, I grew up out here on this onion farm with a bunch of white folks.
Mm-hmm.
Being the only person of color, other than, there was a big population of migrant workers out here.
Right.
From the farms. But other than that, I never saw brown people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was very much a segregation between the migrant community and the farming community. And so I didn't really get to know anybody there or get to interact with other brown folks.
Yeah.
And it was just me. And
Was that sort of a class thing, do you think, that separation, or what, or language, or
I think both.
multiple
I think
things?
cultural, I think language, I think class. Um, I think there was a lot of, everybody kind of keeping to themselves. There's like the farmers and their families, and there's big farming families out here. So you have all your aunts and uncles and cousins. Like I grew up with everybody, which I thought was just how everybody grew up,
Yeah.
knowing all their cousins, knowing their grandparents, great grandparents, everybody. It wasn't until I was an adult that I realized, oh, this is a unique thing,
Totally.
but not unique in Native community, which I find really interesting is that I had this like farming community and it's way different
Yeah.
being raised in a Native community, but it also was community.
Mhm.
And I knew what it was like to grow up in community. So when I found my Native family, that sort of community piece felt really natural and at home.
Right.
Yeah.
So were your adoptive parents, uh were they upfront about you being adopted, and well, just describe what that relationship was like, because those can be very, very complicated, is what I'm
Yeah.
finding out.
Yeah. It's definitely complicated. Um, but I always knew that I was adopted. I have this baby book that my mom, my parents kept all my photos and baby photos in it. And I always had access to it and would look at all these pictures growing up. And there were pictures of them picking me up at the adoption agency as an infant, pictures of them signing the adoption papers at the courthouse. So it was always my story. There was
Yeah.
never a time when I didn't know I was adopted, and never a time that I didn't know I was Native. So
Okay.
I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
I had no cultural context for it. I just knew that I was Umatilla and white and adopted.
Were there other siblings in the house?
Yeah, so I have a younger brother who is not adopted. He was a surprise.
Mm.
So my mom, it's one of those stories, and I think they're really common stories where, the couple, something happens, they feel like they can't get pregnant, they've tried. I think my
Mhm.
mom had had a miscarriage at some point. Um, she'd been to doctors. They were like, "Yep, you're
Yeah.
fertile, you're not gonna have babies." They adopted me, and then my brother was born 14 months after me. So she got pregnant pretty quickly
Yeah.
after they had adopted me. So I grew up with a younger brother in the house, and then found out later I also have a younger sister through my birth mother and a younger brother through my birth father.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And my sister and I have the same name.
Really?
Yeah, by total coincidence. Like, I think it's fate and kismet and,
Right.
the magic of mothers. But yeah,
Right.
they didn't know. My adoptive parents named me Melissa.
Okay.
And then my sister, who's also named Melissa, was named by our mother, my birth mother, after a friend of hers who visited her in the hospital when my sister was born, not knowing that that was my name.
Wow.
So there's two Melissas.
That's a trip.
Yeah. And we have the same initials. Our middle names start with L and our last names both start with B.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is a little freaky. I like that kind of convergence, though. That feels good to me. That doesn't feel like a coincidence. Um, so
Yeah.
you've always known you had this indigenous background. So what kind of things were your parents? What were they? Were they doing their best to kind of educate you on that, or were they just said, "Oh, by the way, you're Native," and
Yeah.
That's that.
It was just kind of, by the way, you're native, you know.
Mhm.
The I was born in the late 70s, and at that time, assimilation was really the name of the game
Mhm.
in the adoption world. Um, where, my mom has told me, oh yeah, it was just, we just want to make you like us. We don't want you to feel any different.
Right.
But of course I felt different. I felt different
Mhm.
because I looked different. I felt different because I came from a different culture.
Yeah.
I felt different because I was adopted, all these different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were, they just didn't, I think they didn't know what to do.
Right.
And no one was there to help them.
Right.
And they were being told, oh, just, assimilate.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any connection with Native people. I didn't even meet another Native person until middle school. And then I had there were like 3 or 4 other Native kids in the school.
Mhm.
That was it.
And yeah, I think you kind of touched on it. They were being told just have them assimilate. So it wasn't like there was nothing malicious behind it. It was just they thought they were doing the right thing by trying to integrate you into an existing culture, and it's probably a blind spot that this culture is a huge part of who you are, and it should not have been shoved down.
Exactly. Yeah. And I always wanted to know more about it. What did it mean? Um, I was always I just always had questions. I still have
Mhm.
questions. And
For sure.
I've known my birth family now for, 20 some years, but I think adoption just comes with a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, well, now that we've talked about you, let me get right into me.
Yes.
I'm just playing. But yeah, so my dad is Native. My mom is white. I grew up with my mom and my sisters, different dads. They're white. We actually adopted. My mom adopted my second cousin. So he was raised like a little brother, and I still call him my little brother, but also white. Grew up in a town on the Oregon coast, super white. So I would see my dad on spring breaks and summer breaks and things, but my mom wasn't necessarily trying to assimilate me. She wanted me to be very proud of being Indian, but didn't have any idea of what to do or how. And I didn't know. I knew I was supposed to, but I wasn't really sure why. And it's not like school is going to say all these glowing things about natives, and you know, so yeah. Anytime I talk to a mixed person or an adoptee, or in your case both, that's the common thing is these questions. And I mean that's why I created the podcast, because I I um yeah, I still have questions. And what I went through was going to powwows with my dad and being like, I don't belong here. These people are real Indians, and I am definitely not. And it took a long time to get over that. And it also took a long time for me to be like, they don't really give a shit. They're happy you're here. Like they're not looking at you like you're less than. They're your people. So
Yeah, I know that feeling so well. I've been, I think the first powwow I went to was when I was probably either a senior in high school or a freshman in college, and went out to Siletz to
mhm.
a powwow out at Siletz. And it was, like suddenly I was surrounded by all these other Native people. And I wanted so much to feel like I belonged. Like I wanted to talk to people. I wanted people to talk to me. I wanted to know, like, I wanted to feel like this was my family.
Yeah.
And it just didn't,
Hmm.
you know? And same thing. It's taken a long time to really kind of grow into those spaces.
Yeah.
Um, and now feel like, oh yeah, I do have a home here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take my kid to Clement Falls every year. He just turned 7, but we've been doing this 3 or 4 years now. Just meet him for the whole weekend, and I'm explaining to him like, I mean, he's like a quarter now native, but and he doesn't really look the part, but I still tell him like, these are your people, dude. These are like, and the other thing, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this every episode, but like since he was like little, like a year old, I'm always telling him, your ancestors got your back, dude. Your ancestors got your back. If you're tripping, if whatever, like just be cool. Don't worry about it. And we were at a powwow one year, and I was he was like, why are we here? What are we doing? And I was like, I'm always telling you your ancestors have your back, right? And he's like, yes, yes. And I was like, well, now you're going to get to feel it. And there was a moment during grand entry where I was holding him and he was closing his eyes like super tight, just like this. And then I was like, what is he? And then he opened them and like he looked like he was about to cry, and he like looked at me and just gave me like the hardest hug I've ever got. And I was like, oh my god. I was like, that's the feeling I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah.
it's still one of my favorite moments ever. But I want him to feel comfortable in that space from the very beginning.
Absolutely. I just went to a ceremony a couple weeks ago, and there's always lots of kids, running around, and I just look at them and I have so much love for them and so much gratitude to their parents, because I think, oh, they're getting to grow up the way I wish I had gotten to grow up. Right.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I want them to know I'm their auntie,
Hmm.
and that I'm looking out for them too. I may be a stranger to them, they may have never met me, but I
Yeah.
want them to look at me and know that, oh, and to look around at these ceremonies and go, oh, this is my family. This is my community that I belong to. These are
Yeah.
people. Yeah. Mhm.
That's really cool. So what led you to meeting up with your birth mom?
Yeah. So I always knew that I wanted to find her. I know there's a lot of adoptees who have either really don't want to find them, or are maybe on the fence, or they go through some process. I always knew that I was gonna find her. Um, and I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but at some point I I had heard about, as you get to be like a teenager and you're thinking about college, native kids start hearing, oh, there might be money. There's those native scholarships,
Right.
you know, this
Yeah.
mysterious pot of gold for native
Right.
kids. And so I wanted to know what this enrollment thing was about. And so I called the Umatilla Nation and got in touch with their enrollment office. This is when I turned 18. It was like the second I turned 18.
Hmm.
And I told them my story. And at that time, so this would have been in the mid 90s, um, adoption records in Oregon were still closed.
Right.
They're open now, as far as I know. But at that time, they were still closed. And the enrollment person told me, oh, well, we have the same authority as a judge because we're a sovereign nation
Mm.
to open and access your adoption records. And they could find out who my birth mother was, and they could put me in touch with her. And I was like,
Wow.
just like that? Like, like I thought, oh, this is gonna take years and years.
Yeah.
You hear
A
all,
lot of red tape.
yeah, you hear all these stories. And back then, I would watch like Montel and
Hmm.
Fred, you know, Donahue. I'm like totally aging myself. Um, and there would be all these reunion shows of
Yeah.
adoptees meeting their adoptive parents. And I would cry and cry watching these shows. But they all had these stories about how long it took to find them, and they'd been searching and searching. And here was this woman at the tribe being like, oh, yeah, we can just get your birth certificate and find your mom. No big deal.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I need a minute.
Yeah.
Because I was 18.
Right.
And
As a
I,
kid.
yeah, I was a kid and I knew enough to know that I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Like that I was getting ready to go to college. I was graduating high school. I was like meeting boys. I had a
Mhm.
lot going on as a teenager.
Yeah.
And so I waited a little bit. And then when I think I was 23, so still young,
Yeah.
but thought I knew all the things.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. And I sent like a little letter to the tribe and said, I think I'm ready to find my birth mother. Like, what do I do? And we started talking more regularly, and they couldn't find her.
Hmm.
So, this thing that I thought was going to be really fast
Right.
ended up taking many years. And what I found out later was that they had asked, like, my aunties, they knew some of the cousins, they knew the grandmas, and nobody knew where my mom was. And then one day she went in to get enrolled. And
Hmm.
she walked into the enrollment office and they said, "We've been looking for you.
Yeah.
And then they told her my birth date. What does this date mean to you?" And she, I guess, just started sobbing and said, "You found my daughter."
Wow.
And then they put us in touch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. So have you asked her what was going through her head in that moment?
I never asked her. She's since passed away. I knew her for 3 years before she died.
Okay.
So I didn't have a lot of time with her. And I was really, I think then, because it was my early 20s, I was very hesitant about going too fast.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I would only have her for a few years.
Right.
And so there's a lot of questions I didn't ask. Um, but I did get to talk to her about what it was like to relinquish me,
Hmm.
what happened, like the circumstances around all that. So I have that whole story. She wrote to me in letters. I have all these letters from her.
Yeah.
A lot of that story I do have, but a lot of the things that happened later or were happening in her life at the moment, I don't have a lot of that.
Yeah. So what was the reason? Why were you relinquished?
Yeah, so she was 15 at the time. And she didn't want to tell her parents. It was actually her dad and her stepmother, who she called her step monster.
Oh.
She always called her my step monster.
Hmm.
Um, she didn't want to tell them, but of course, at some point, it's gonna be apparent.
Yeah.
So I think her brother, my uncle had threatened, was like, if you don't tell mom and dad, I'm going to tell mom and dad, kind of a thing. And so she
Yeah.
told them, and they said, we're sending you to this home for girls, unwed,
Home
pregnant.
from home for unwed mothers.
Yeah.
My mom went there.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
in Portland.
Yep.
And they put her there and said, don't come home until you've given that baby up. And because she was 15, she had no rights. She was told, like, it doesn't matter if you sign the adoption papers or not, your dad has already signed everything. You're 15, you have no right to keep this child, basically.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there was a lot of trauma in those 9 days of my birth, or
Hmm.
following my birth, because I was removed from her immediately. Um, and I could go on for hours about what I think the impact of that is on adoptees.
Yeah.
But yeah, she just didn't have any choice.
Hmm.
And then when she got pregnant with my sister, who we're just under 2 years apart, she likes to remind me that she's younger. But when she got pregnant again, she left home and married her father and was just like, I'm never giving up this baby. Like,
Yeah.
you do it once, I'm not doing it again.
My mom was at that same place in Portland, and she relinquished my oldest brother, Bill. Um, and the really fucked up part of her story, I mean, there's a lot of fucked up parts of it, but what happened to her is she was there for 10 or 12 or 14 days, but he was with her that entire stretch. And
Oh,
so then around, 10 days of her bonding with this baby, she like took a nap or she fell asleep or whatever and gone.
oh my God.
Yeah. And
Oh,
yeah, and it's saying like you're saying, like it's pretty clear now to see what kind of impact that had on her and him.
yeah.
And they're in reunion too. And then the other thing that's tricky about that one is that she had a child from the same baby daddy, which she did not relinquish. And so he has the story of why didn't she want me when it was more. Um, One of my first guests was, I don't know if you know Shalise, but she's a Korean adoptee, international Korean adoptee, and she made this great point that it's easy for adoptees to get it into their head that it's because they weren't wanted when it's more than likely just a lack of resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I had that narrative for a long time. And I always had this fear that if I messed up as a little kid, I was like, if I mess up, I'm going to be abandoned again. Like my
Yeah.
parents are going to get rid of me. Or I was afraid, like if my parents went on vacation, I was terrified they were going to die in a plane crash. Like I had this
Mm.
total abandonment, deep fear of like, I'm going to be unwanted. I'm not good enough. I'm going to do something wrong, and it's impacted my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because my partner is Laura, who's the adoptee unicorn. She's a birth mom and an adoptee. And I had not put very much thought into adoption, even though I had been literally surrounded by it, like having an adopted little brother and having my older brother as an adoptee, and even my dad and uncle grew up in foster care because they were taken from their families. I just had never connected those dots before. And then she started putting me on game, as they say, and I was like, oh wow, this stuff is heavy. Like I didn't have any idea. And also, when I had my mom as a guest on this, and I learned more about her in that hour than I had in 40 something years.
Oh,
Because she had never talked about it. She never talked about the adoption. She didn't, she just, that was something that happened and it's in the past, and we don't talk about stuff that happened in the past. And
yeah.
so, yeah, anyways, yeah, um, yeah, I don't know. It's just such heavy stuff. And I think it's really cool in Portland, this big connected adoptee community that is all supporting each other and friendly. And I think that is so cool that everybody seems to be supporting each other.
hmm it's really incredible. And it goes beyond Portland too.
Right.
They have Adoption Mosaic has that base in Portland, and there's a big community in Portland, and then it has these sort of, threads that connect people all over. And it's really the first time in my life that I've had a community of other adoptees.
Mhm.
I've known other adoptees throughout my life.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll meet somebody or, work with someone who's adopted or, but I've never had like this big web or big community of adoptees. And it's so healing
Totally.
just to be able to share stories and experiences and the complicated nature of adoption and the trauma of adoption. Even if you have the greatest adoptive parents,
Yeah.
the act of removal from your family of origin is traumatic.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I had Ostrid as a guest too, and her story of, being removed from her mom, essentially while she was at work, and oh man, that was a wild story.
Yeah. My birth mother, she told me that when she was at that home for the girls, that it was the first time in her life that she ever felt like she was really seen.
Really?
Here was this 15-year-old girl, and she was around other girls who were in these similar situations. She liked the counselors. I think they treated her respectfully. And she told me, she's like, that's the only or the first time that she really felt like there were people who understood her, which I also think says a lot about what her family life was like.
Right.
Yeah. Um, but when she went into labor, there was only one counselor on duty. So they put her in a taxi and sent her to the hospital. This 15-year-old girl all by herself. It just
Yeah.
blows my mind. Yeah.
So, are you in reunion with your father?
Hmm. I am. And this kind of gets into my work too. There was one of those magical things that happened. I don't really have a relationship with him, but I have met him. I know him. I know where he is. I can get in a hold of him if I need to, and vice versa. But I had tried to find him while my birth mother was still alive. She gave me as much information as she could. Um, and she had tried to find him. She couldn't find him. I had been Googling and, doing
Yeah.
whatever was happening on the internet in those days and
Hmm.
trying to find him. And then after Karen was my birth mother's name, after she passed away.
That's my mom's name.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Amazing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, after she had passed away.
Wait, just real quick. I want to. I want
Yeah.
to make sure we make a note of this. Your birth mom, whose
Yeah.
name is Karen, ended up in Portland at the home for unwed mothers. My mom's name is Karen, and ended up in Portland at the home for unwed mothers.
Oh,
And me
wild.
and you have
What
never
if they
met
knew each
before.
other? Yeah.
And that would have been, I think my sister's 9 years older than me. So I think she would have been there in probably like 68.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, this would have been 77
okay.
or
Little,
76 because I was born at the beginning of January. So, yeah. Yeah.
okay. Sorry, I didn't want
Oh,
to cut you
that's,
off there, but I was like, what the heck?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm so used to these magical things happening around my story every time, like something. When I met your wife and she was like, "Oh, I used to live on an onion farm," I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! No
Yeah.
one has ever lived on. Like, I don't know anyone." But yeah. So my birth mother had passed away, and there was one night where I couldn't sleep, and I kept thinking about my birth father and wondering, like, who is this person? Where is he? And I all of a sudden had this thought, or I would now say it was my mother telling me from the unseen world, um, you got his birth date wrong. You got his age wrong. Go back to my letters and look, because you got his age wrong. And so in the middle of the night,
Hmm.
I go to this shoebox where I have her letters, and I'm going through all these letters, and I find that he was a year younger than I thought he was. So I go to Google, type him
Hmm.
in, comes up like that.
Wow.
Found him, found his son, found his wife, found him on Facebook, sent him a message.
Wow.
Yeah. He didn't respond right away.
Right. No.
And I wasn't like, oh, I think I'm your daughter. It was more of, hey, did you happen to go to high school with this girl named Karen?
Yeah.
No. And he didn't say anything.
Hmm.
And then it was, I think several weeks went by and I decided I was going to message him one more time. I thought just one more time. And if I
Yeah.
don't hear from him, fine, but I need to know. And so I wrote and I told more of the story. And I said, I'm not looking for anything. I just need to know if it's you or not.
Yeah.
I can stop looking. And he wrote back right away and
Yeah.
said, it's me. Yeah.
Do you think the wife and son knew about
They
you?
did not know.
They did not know.
They did
Okay.
not know. And um, yeah, I don't know how that conversation went.
Right.
He had to be like, oh, and I have another child.
Right. Just while you're having dinner. Oh, by the way, my adult
Yeah.
daughter just contacted me.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
And his son at the time was still in high school. There's a big age difference between us. And so, yeah, I don't know how that went.
Yeah.
We met one day. It was very, I don't know, he was very like love bombing. A lot
Mhm.
of, here's some gifts, here's this. Oh my gosh, lots of
Right.
big promises, and then just disappeared.
Yeah.
So we've kind of kept track of each other throughout the years. Like I said, we know where everybody's at, but we don't have much of a relationship.
How about the little brother? Do you have much of one with him?
I don't at all, and I would love to,
Mm-hmm.
but when he was in high school and found out about me, we messaged a few times back then, and he was like, "You're not my relative." He's
Yeah.
like, my dad's a sperm donor as far as I'm concerned, and our genetics don't make you my relative. And I was
Nice.
like, okay, and you're a teenager, and
Right.
one day you'll change your mind.
Yeah.
Um, and we follow each other on social media, and but we don't connect, we don't communicate. Um, but I want him to know I'm here if you
Mm-hmm.
ever do change your mind, because I would love to get to know him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, when did you really start to kind of like reclaim your indigenous identity? Like, when did you really start to get into that, and what led you to that?
Yeah. It was always there, and it was always something that I wanted so much to be more part of. And I think it was when I was like finishing high school and I became really close friends with a woman, or at the time, a girl who we were the same age in the same class. And she had an older sister, and they were figuring out that they were Apache, but they had always been told they were Mexican. And so they were kind of in this different type of discovery of their ancestry, but still in that discovery place and figuring out where they belonged. So together, we would go to powwows. We would, ask questions of like family members. We would look for books. We would do what we could to research.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it really started for me to start kind of putting my toe into the community.
Yeah.
I had these friends who were there with me. Um,
That's good.
yeah, and that just started growing. And then by the time I got to graduate school, by then I had found my family. And when I found them, it really just opened up.
Hmm.
It was like, oh, my family is part of the Native community in Portland. Like they've been there for 3 generations,
Hmm.
3 or 4 generations. Everybody knows my family. I would and I started going to more Native events in Portland, because there's such a big community there. And
Yeah.
I, when I was in graduate school, there was a Native woman who had graduated before me, and the teachers put me in touch with her and said, "Oh, you're gonna love her." And right away, she was like, "I'm Auntie Shelley," like
Yeah.
she's my auntie, and helped me through a lot of things and took me to events. And
Yeah.
um, that was another space where it really, yeah. And then I had some answers. So then when I went and people would say, "Well, what's your tribe?" And I would say Umatilla, and they'd be like, "Okay, well, who's your family?" Now I have an answer.
Hmm.
Because before that, I'd be like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And they're just like, eh. No,
Right.
we don't know you. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did that reconnection and or maybe expansion of indigenous identity, what did that do for your adoptive identity?
It, that's such a great question. It was like these pieces kind of coming together, and it was very healing. It was before I had found my birth family, just to be at a powwow and look around and go, "Oh, like we don't all look like freaking Dances with Wolves, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't all look like this Lakota,
Right.
beautiful." We look like me. We look like you. We look.
Hmm.
There's so many mixed people, and we're very diverse. And
Yeah.
I started to see myself reflected in these places, and there was language and experience for things that I felt in my
Mhm.
heart, and like my own spirituality that had been developing. Suddenly I was in these places where the language made sense.
Yeah.
Oh, and it just really, it felt like a homecoming. It really felt like coming home and finding that sense of belonging. It took a long time.
Yeah.
It was a process, but I kept showing up. I still keep showing up.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think it also just helped me to kind of integrate culture in a way that I'd never had the opportunity to do.
Yeah. Right. One of my one of my kind of part of my history I don't really look back fondly on is in my early 20s. I kind of look back at somebody that was playing Indian, and especially when it came to drinking, I kind of bought into the stereotype of the crazy drunk Indian out there doing crazy stuff. And I bought into that, thinking that's what not necessarily what I was supposed to do, but almost as a way to set myself apart from the crowd, I guess. And so I was pretending to be a crazy drunk Indian when in actuality I kind of became a crazy drunk Indian. And
Right.
I couldn't separate the two anymore. And um, I mean, everybody knows our people's problems with alcohol, and I was 100% in way over my head, and it took a lot of time to get out of it. But that's part of the the mixed identity part of it is in my 20s I didn't have a lot of connection to the community, and I thought I was making my own path, and I wasn't. But yeah, and that's a tough one, and I'm not against. I don't drink now, and I'm not against people that do, but it does not work for me, and I don't think it works for a lot of Indians.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think I was really lucky that, like, I went to the Evergreen State College for my undergraduate degree, and I think they were the first state college in the country to have a longhouse. And so they had this native space and
Wow.
native people and native events. And so even though I hadn't found my family yet, and um, but I could be with native people, and like it was like I could get closer, and I had, because it was at the college, there were some really great, role models. There were some aunties who were working there who later I ended up many years later going back and working there, like 20 years later, and some of those women were still there, and
Yeah.
um it so I feel like I was really lucky to have these aunties around who had been through all that
Yeah.
and could give me that kind of advice, and like, oh, you don't want to go down that road, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
What really had an impact on me was Leonard Peltier had a book called Prison Writings, My Life is My Sundance, I think. And I bought this book probably 5 times and gave it away. But this white dude I worked with handed me a copy of it. And I was working in a parking garage at the time. And there would be sometimes hours where nothing happened. So I started reading through this book. And one of the lines he had in the book was, um, and I'll paraphrase, but it was basically like, through all the trials and tribulations, still my greatest pride is being an Indian. And like, it's making me emotional now because I was like, oh my God, dude, I'm doing this all wrong. Like, I don't need to go represent what I think an Indian should be. I am the representation. And it just had such an impact on me. And I wrote a letter, this really long letter to him while he was in prison. And I never heard anything back, but the, Leonard Peltier Defense Committee put out an email that was like, it's impossible for him to get back to everybody, but his letters are having an impact, or your letters are having an impact on him. And I was like, maybe that was my letter.
Ah,
Um, so yeah, that book meant a lot to me. Just just helping me reconnect and get to the core of what it means to be Indigenous, because there is a lot of trials and tribulations and generational trauma, and uh, it could be tough to walk in our shoes sometimes.
yeah.
Moccasins, maybe.
Yeah. When I first started connecting with community and was sharing my story, this would have been when I was in grad school. And I was there with this auntie, and she was introducing me to people. And I was really getting this opportunity to hear other people's stories. And I was shocked at how many people were adopted or had been removed from their families for different reasons. How many of these, we had the same questions, and there were so many people with the same heartbreak over separation, and not only separation from family, but separation from culture. People who had just never been to the reservation, who had
Mhm.
always grown up in an urban environment. People whose families were like, assimilate, like it's easier, it's
Yeah,
safer, right? We don't
yeah.
talk about those Indian things because we don't want anybody to get hurt.
Hmm.
um, and you had this new generation, there was this younger generation of native folks who were like, oh, we're all showing up and telling our stories with the support of our elders, and we're finding out we all have these common things. Like this is the Indian experience. Like this is what
Yeah,
it means to be native.
yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. I love this topic, man. Especially when I can talk to somebody that gets it. Um,
Same.
yeah, it's wild. Wow, being it reminds me. Was it La Bamba where the dad was like, "It's tough being Mexican because you have to know Richie Valens and you have to know." I can't remember. Anyway, um,
Yeah. It's like having to know both sides,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Um, okay, so you mentioned a little bit ago how you thought that your mom might have communicated with you in a dream, or no, you weren't asleep.
I
You were
wasn't.
still awake. Yeah. Okay. So um, let's talk about that experience real quick, and then kind of get into what you do now. So what did that feel like? Was it scary? Was it warm? Was it natural? What did it feel like when that moment happened?
It was very natural. I think by that point in my life, I had already been talking with people who had passed over, ancestors, relatives who had died. I've been talking to the dead since I was a little kid. Um, and so that didn't scare me.
Okay.
It felt really, yeah, it felt really natural, and it felt really like I knew to pay attention to it. I felt like, oh yeah, I need to listen to this voice. I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if it was like just my intuition or if it was coming from my mother.
Right.
I look back on it and I'm like, oh, that was my mama, talking
Yeah.
to me. Because now I also know the difference between my intuitive voice and the voice of the ancestors that are coming into.
And that probably just is learned, right?
Yeah,
Just
it's
experience.
a lot of practice, a lot of years of practice. Like I've been doing this professionally for over 30 years. So a lot of experience and trial and error.
So you noticed at a younger age that you were able to kind of tap into a realm that the rest of us aren't experiencing as easily. And
Yeah.
did you see it as a gift, or was it just like something I know how to do? And what was it like?
When I was little, it scared me. I remember, things like items disappearing in my room, and I would be like hysterical. I remember crying with my mom, being like, I have to find the ball. I have to find the ball, right? Like,
Yeah.
I need to know where it is before I go to sleep. And I couldn't sleep. I was terrified
Hmm.
because I didn't, it was like, well, where'd it go? Like, it was just here
Yeah.
and now it's gone. And then it would like be there in the morning or something,
Hmm.
weird things that would happen. Um, I remember feeling like my great grandfather, my adoptive great grandfather, died in the house that I grew up in and before I was born. But I always felt like he was at the bottom of our basement stairs and that he would like jump out to try to scare me.
Yeah.
So I would see it like in my mind and I would feel the feeling of it,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand what this experience was, you know.
Yeah.
As I got into like middle school age, it was kind of a joke. Like I would try it out on people as a joke. Like I see ghosts, right?
Yeah.
I can read your palm. Ha ha ha.
Hmm.
It's like this. I was testing the waters and that's when it really started to grow and develop and I started to kind of figure out what was happening
Hmm.
and building this relationship with the unseen world in a really intentional kind of way.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember later my mom or my dad telling me, "Oh yeah, when he was a kid, because this house used to be my great grandparents' house. My parents bought it from them. And
Hmm.
when my dad was a kid and would come over and visit, my great grandfather used to hide under the basement stairs and jump out and scare them. And so this is what he did to the kids in the family.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me that this is what he did.
Yeah.
This was his thing.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
You know. So these kind of confirmations would start to, and I'd be like, oh, this is like something's going on here.
Yeah. I was about to say that must have felt very validating that you weren't just your mind wasn't playing tricks on you. It was your great grandpa.
Yeah.
I saw a medium one time professionally in Boise, Idaho, and um, she was kind of a family friend, and she had a really good reputation. Like she had helped the police find bodies and things like that. And I was not like a skeptic, but I just kind of went, yeah, I'll go, whatever. I don't know. And I was standing there, or I was sitting across from her, and she she described my great grandpa down to the color of suspenders he wore. And she was like, and he has a short name, right? Like Kip or Sam. I was like, it's Saul. And she's like, oh yeah, and a white crew cut. I was like, and she's like, kind of a big belly. I was like, yeah. And she's like, in rainbow suspenders. And I was like, I'm gonna jump out that window right now. Like, and she's like, and I think she could sense that I was getting a little bit like, okay. And she's like, uh, he's standing behind you right now, and he has his hand on your shoulder. And so I closed my eyes, and I could feel this like very light, and I was like, oh my god, that's him! I cannot believe this. And like, she basically was. That's where I got on the whole ancestor kick. Like ancestors having my back, like way back then, because that's what she said. She's like, whenever you're in that vulnerable, whatever feeling, like they're watching, they're around. And I was like, man, that was super heavy.
You know
So,
that episode of Reservation Dogs?
yeah, I was gonna, yeah, I was gonna bring it up and see if
Yeah.
you'd seen it. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
so the episode is Willie Jack visiting her aunt, right? Her aunt who's in prison, and she's having problems because the friend group is separating. They're starting to go their own way, and yeah, so her auntie, which is Lily Gladstone, who's an amazing actress, takes her hands and is holding them, and she starts telling her that her people are healers and her people are this and that, and all of the relatives start forming behind her. It's making me emotional now, but it's so powerful, dude. And you could see it did not seem like she was acting. It seemed like having all of those people behind her really was impacting
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I watched that episode, every time I watch it,
her. Mm-hmm.
now I've seen it many times, but I was just sobbing because that is exactly the experience that I have.
Mm-hmm.
When I feel my ancestors, they have my back, and it's
Yeah.
like an ocean of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so many. And there's definitely those who have a louder voice
Yeah.
and come forward and will talk to me. I call them the spokespeople.
Mm-hmm.
My great grandfather and my great grandmother are usually the main ones who come and talk. Um, but then when I do that work with other people, it's the same thing. Like I'll see them standing by somebody, or they come into the space and show me things that only like it's a connection only with
Mm-hmm.
those people.
Yeah.
And it's that same feeling of love and care, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And me and my great grandpa were really close. I would for a while I lived right at the street from him. So every Saturday morning I would walk down to his house and we would watch wrestling, and then he would give me 50 cents to get his mail, or a couple bucks to mow his lawn. And then when my great grandma died and he continued to go to church, I would go to the church. I had no interest in what was going on with the church, but I liked hanging out with my great grandpa. And it was one of those things too where he paid no attention to any of the grandkids. But for some reason, me and him just kind of hit it off. And it, which is interesting in itself, because by all accounts, he was a racist old white guy. but here was this little Indian kid that for whatever reason he felt something. And yeah, so as soon as she said that, yeah, I've been able to use that over and over and over again, because I'm a big believer in manifesting and the power of I don't like to say prayer because that sounds kind of heavy, but just putting stuff out there. And definitely when I'm feeling troubled, I will bow my head and be like, guys, I need some help, dude. I'm tripping. Like, and I will feel that sensation all over again. And it always works too. It's never a scary feeling. And um uh I had a son that passed when he was 7, and he will sometimes make his presence felt. And there was one day where I was laying on my bed and he came and laid right on my chest. And I was like, but yeah, that was
Feel like the weight of him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was what I needed at that moment. So um
They're taking care of us.
yeah. Um so so you said that they're spokespersons. What do those messages come across as? Does it sound like somebody talking, or is it a vibe, or what is that like?
It it can vary. Sometimes, like with my own ancestors, I usually hear them speaking to me, and it's not like an audible sound. Sometimes it is, I should say. Once in a while, I will hear an audible, like I've heard drumming before, and I'll be like, where's that drum coming from? Like, what
Mhm.
is going on? And it's just really faint and like really distant. And then I'll be like,
Mhm.
oh, I think they're trying to get my attention or something's going on. But that's rare.
Yeah.
Usually it's more of like the thoughts that come into my mind, and I can feel the difference in my body
Mm.
between like my own voice and something that's coming from them. And usually they don't just come and like, it's not like all day long. They're like,
Yeah.
I have, through so many years of practice, created a lot of boundaries around when they get to come visit me. I used to
Yeah.
be woken up in my sleep a lot, um, shaking my bed, grabbing my hand, touching me.
Hmm.
And I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like, please don't touch me.
Yeah.
Please don't squeeze my hand or grab me or like,
Yeah.
no startling. Thank you very much. You can play with the lights. You can turn the radio on. You can do those
Yeah.
things, but don't, please don't touch me
Yeah.
because that does freak me out.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Um,
sure.
but yeah, well, I'm sorry. I totally got derailed. What was the question?
Oh, just like how do these messages or whatever, like how do you experience an,
Yeah.
an actual voice, or just like you're saying,
Yeah.
a feeling within your body or
Right. So I
self?
hear these thoughts, I feel it in my body, and then sometimes I'll get like a feeling like if I'm getting ready to do some work with a client, they sometimes I'll get like a stomach ache or a headache, and I'll ask them, "Are you okay? Like, do you have a bad headache, or are you having gut issues, or?" And yes, there's always like it's connected to that.
Yeah.
And I think that the spirits that I'm speaking with will, these ancestors will offer images, thoughts, feelings, physical experiences, emotions in whatever way is going to connect them with their person, right? In
Hmm.
a way that's going to make sense for that person. Often it's the most often it's thoughts and images. So they'll show me things
Hmm.
because it's faster. It's like a faster way of communicating than words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my job is to try and translate the image that I'm seeing.
Right.
And so, like an example, I tell this story a lot because it still blows my mind. This happened many years ago. So, well, maybe like 5 years ago now. And the night before I was going to meet with a client, it was like the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. And I kept feeling like I needed to get up and make rice porridge, congee, like Asian rice.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
literally,
very specific.
yeah, very specific. It was like, okay, I was just craving it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the middle of the night. And congee takes like at least an hour, hour and a half to make. This is not a slow process,
Yeah.
not a fast process, right? So it's like 2 a.m. and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna make some congee now. And so I make this congee. It was delicious. It was like the thing I was craving. The next day, I'm getting ready to meet with my client, and I can feel this grandma in my kitchen. And she's this small Asian woman, and she was really petite, thin, and she goes, I want that congee on the altar. And I said, oh, okay, so this is for this person that I'm reading for. And the grandma was like, yes, put the congee on the altar. And so I got it out of the refrigerator, and I was just going to put the cold, congee and put it on the altar because it's symbolic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Okay.
how we make offerings for our ancestors. We
Mm-hmm.
know they're not literally coming and eating it,
Yeah.
it's the spirit of it. And so I go to do that. And then I hear this grandma, she goes, no, you heat it up and you put it together like you're going to eat it. With all the toppings and the soy sauce and the ginger and all the things like I was going to eat. She's like, don't you try and pull a fast one on me. Don't be putting this cold congee on the altar.
Yeah.
So I get it all ready. I put it on the altar. I send pictures to my client. We get on the phone and she says, is that congee? And I go, yeah, this grandma has been telling me that I needed to put it on the altar. And I said it was so weird because last night in the middle of the night, I just got this craving and I had to have it. And she goes, I woke up in the middle of the night and made congee. This is what my grandma used to make for me. And I was like, okay, then.
Yeah.
you know, these are the things that I need to listen to and pay attention to
Mm-hmm.
and trust.
Right.
And the more that I've practiced it and the more I've trusted, like I've built up this ability so that when I see the little grandma in the kitchen, I'm not like, oh, I'm crazy. That's my imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Going, oh, this is somebody's grandma and I need to listen to her.
Yeah.
I'm respecting her in this relationship. It's something really important because there's meaning for that client that I know nothing about
Mm-hmm.
until they say, oh, I got up in the middle of the night and made it too.
Yeah. That is really, really wild. And what was her reaction? I mean, she said she made.
Yeah, she could not. My friend was like, what in the world? Like,
Yeah.
she couldn't believe it. And then I started describing the woman, and she was like, oh, that's my grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's similar to like what you were saying about your great grandfathers, that I see the image of them
Mm-hmm.
and they show themselves to me in the way that is going to make sense to the person that I'm reading for in that time.
Right.
So they can kind of change what they look like, and they're not in a body anymore, so they can really shape
Yeah.
themselves however. Um, so I can describe them in a way that the person go, oh, I immediately know who that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess it wouldn't make sense for my great grandpa to be in his early 20s. I would have no idea who he was.
Right.
But yeah, the version I'm familiar with, yeah, that totally makes sense. So how is so when you're working with clients and you're kind of prepping, is there some native influence? What does that look like?
Absolutely. So I always start with what I call prayer meditation. I sit and I pray in the way that I've been taught as a Native person. And I use Native language, the little bit that I know, I call in creator. I I ask to be a hollow bone, to let spirit move through me, to get out of my own way so
Mhm.
that I can listen and be a good translator of what this information is. I call in my ancestors and spirit helpers, the spirits that I have worked with and know through my native practice and through native ceremony.
Mhm.
And then I call in the spirit helpers and ancestors of the person I'm reading for. And I always ask that it's for their highest good and that it's appropriate for the work we're doing in that moment.
Mhm.
Because I've learned if you just say, come on in,
Yeah.
everybody shows up. And then
Yeah.
it gets really confusing and it's hard to know what messages are really the most important that need to get.
Yeah.
And I really treat the work with the client as a ceremony in its own, right? It feels like it takes as long as it's going to take. Um, I, it's kind of a combination of reading tarot cards, which to me are just um, tools for storytelling and channeling.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I have ancestors show up who are very chatty.
Yeah.
They have a lot they want to talk about. And so it's fewer cards and more of that, right? Sometimes there isn't an ancestor that shows up,
Mhm.
or they're really quiet and they just kind of want to be present. And I'll explain that to the client that I'm working with, you know. So
Yeah.
really varies. Um,
Is that something you would start the day before, a week before?
I feel like what's happening is that once the person makes the appointment, like books the appointment, that process starts happening. I don't really sit down and do the meditative practice until a half hour or so before I'm going to meet with them. But like in the case with the woman with the kanji, that all was already happening
Yeah.
before, like the day before we met. So there's definitely times when I feel the ancestors of people as soon as that connection is made. I'm like, oh, that ceremony has already started for them.
Yeah.
Um, and in that way, it is very much a native practice in the way that I've understood and experienced ceremony and being in ceremonial spaces and native prayer spaces is it starts when you have that intention.
Mhm. Yeah. I do a gratitude every night, and it's always to the ancestors and the creator. And it's and I may ask for a little, like, hey, can you help me out here? But it's gratitude first, always. Um, and I call that my I call it my conversation with the one, just because I don't know why the prayer thing bothers me so much. I think it's just, you know, there's a
It's one of those words that, is attached to a lot of religious trauma, a lot of
Mhm.
Christianity. Um, it's it's a hard word for yeah.
It's got some weight to it, yeah. But I started calling it the conversation with the one. I don't know if you know who Bootsy Collins is, but he's a funk musician that used to play with George Clinton and Funkadelic and all this. He used to play with James Brown when he was really young, but he was on a podcast one time and he was talking about and James Brown was making music. Everything was done on the two, so it'd be like 1 2 1 2 1 2. And Bootsy Collins comes in. He's like, "You got to do it on the one, baby. You got to do it on the one, 1 2 1." And he was like, "Everybody needs to be on the one. We're all on the one." And I was like, "He's not talking about music anymore. Like he like, and even if he is, I don't care because that's not what I'm getting out of it." And so he was just saying, "We're all connected to the one, baby." And I was like, "The one is everything," and that's what the conversation became because kneeling and praying to God. Not that there's anything wrong with that if that's your thing, but to me, being able to have a conversation with what to me feels like the whole universe is listening feels a lot more. It just fits me better. Fits how I feel better. But
Same. I always bring my sage, I light my sage or I'll use other medicines. It's a very intuitive process. There's times when it's really quick, and there's times when I'm apologizing to my clients because I'm like, I need another half an hour to get ready because there's a whole thing going on over here.
mhm,
Right? Like I'm working with spirit, something's going on, right? But yeah, it's a very intuitive process, and it's like I hear native elders say all the time, it takes as long as it takes, right?
mhm,
Um, and I trust that process.
yeah. Um, and so you do kind of workshops and stuff too, right? So
Uh-huh.
what happens at these workshops?
Yeah. So I've done, I do these wide variety of workshops because I'm also a writer. And so I've done a lot of writing workshops, teaching them. And I've talked about storytelling, different I taught a workshop once with a friend she's Chicana, and she studies Chicana literature and folk tales, right, which are traditional stories.
Yeah.
And we were both really interested in like horror stories and these sort of monster stories and the lessons that they have for us in times of chaos and in, times of oppressive times.
Hmm.
How do these monster stories help us through those things? So I've taught workshops about that. Um, I've taught workshops about how to connect with the ancestors, helping people just to kind of feel into that space for themselves. Um, because I don't feel like this is some special thing, that I'm like bestowed with this magical power, whatever. I
Yeah.
feel like this is a normal thing. It's just that I've been practicing it for a really long time. And I got
Mhm.
keyed into it when I was really young for some reason. But I think that one of the things I love about being in Native community is when I go to a ceremony, everybody's talking about their ancestors.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, yeah, I talked to grandma the other day, or I talked to my auntie, or I talked to this person. And so it's really normal.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel like this supernatural woo woo kind of thing. It feels very grounded. It feels very
Yeah.
rooted. It's very connected to culture. Um, and it's just kind of part of my life.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Well, that was going to be my next question, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. But why do you have any theories why it's a little more easily accessible for some people than others? Kids seem to be a little more tapped in, at least for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that they are coming from a spirit realm. They're still somewhat connected to it, and then as they get older, they get further away. But why do you think it's a little easier for some people?
Yeah. I think that neurodiversity has something to do with it. I recently listened to the most incredible podcast about nonverbal autistic children and young people who are communicating telepathically with the people they're closest to, their caregivers, the parent, sometimes a pet.
Hmm.
Um, it's called the telepathy tapes. Check it out. It's amazing. But it's all these neurodiverse kids, right? And in that case, they're finding other ways to communicate.
Hmm.
And so when I talk to other folks who do this kind of work, this is something a lot of us have in common. Is
Yeah.
a lot of ADHD, autism, you know, different traumas that we went through as young people. I think it's all connected.
Yeah.
I think that part of the reason I have ADHD is because of the trauma of separation at birth.
Hmm.
Um, I think there's something about the being removed immediately from my mother and all the sensory experience that I knew in the womb, right? Like I knew her voice, I knew the smell, I knew the feel of her, and then it's gone.
Hmm.
And so you have to find other ways to relate to the world. And so other senses, I think, kind of come online.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that might have something to do with it. I also think I do believe very much, like you said, that kids are closer to spirit, they're closer to that
Hmm.
unseen world, and they have these memories that
Yeah.
come through. And kids say the most incredible things. I remember I have a younger cousin, and when she was little, I asked her where she was probably like 6, and I said, "Where were you 30 years ago?"
Hmm.
And her whole demeanor changed. She got this really deep voice, and in this very authoritative way, she goes, "I cannot tell you that." And I was like, okay,
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
um, and I think that kind of magic or connection gets lost as we get older. We get told by society, oh, it's your imagination,
Right.
it's not real, don't be afraid, there's no such thing as
Hmm.
whatever you're seeing. Like, my parents, to try and calm me down when the ball disappeared, we're like, oh, it's fine, it's under the table, or I saw it over in the hallway or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
did it.
Hmm.
So I think that we kind of grow out of it in some ways. um and then some of us don't. Some of us really hold on to it or move away from it for a while and then come back to it. Sometimes it comes back as we get older and
Hmm.
we start to remember, oh, I used to have these experiences when I was a kid. Like, I talked to somebody recently who was like that. It scared her a lot when she was really young. So she stopped.
Yeah.
And then when she got older, she kind of got curious about it again, and it opened up for her again. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into it, but those are some of my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, my son was nonverbal. He had this genetic disease called Char syndrome. So he was deaf and he was nonverbal and he couldn't really see. And there was some, like mental retardation. But one of the things that would happen is he would have these seizures and he would stop breathing, just straight up, just stop breathing and would be biting down on his tongue. And so the number of times I resuscitate him, I couldn't even tell you how many. But there was one time my mom was visiting from out of state, and me and her were sitting in the living room, and he was in the bedroom, and I just went, "Oh shit!" And I jumped up and went in there, and he was in the middle of one, and so I resuscitated him and got him breathing again. And those episodes would just lay him out. I mean, he would sleep for 8 hours afterwards, no matter what time of day. But anyways, point of that story was is she was like, "How did you know what was going on?" And I'm like, "I just knew." And there was a number of times like that where I just went, "Oh shit, something's going on," and I would find him, and he would be in that condition. Um, so yeah, now I want to go listen to that podcast because makes total sense to me. He did have his own way of communicating, and sometimes were really obvious. Like when he wanted me to wake up and would start pulling on my eyelids, or sometimes he would go stomp the closet door as loud as he could, and he just did that. Yeah, so that's and here's another one. There was one time, it's one of those things where I don't know why, don't know what, but it was Dia de Muerta, and me and him were hanging out. And I just, for some reason, I had never done this before or since. I'm like, we should walk up to the cemetery and just have a look around and just see. So we were just walking through, and there was nothing particularly notable about it. until I was walking a short ways and it felt like I was giving somebody a piggyback ride.
Huh.
And I was like, what the heck? And I was like, oh my God, there's a kid on my back right now. And we walked a little ways and then it got off. The kid got off. But it was so weird because I was like, I don't know what made me want to do that day, but it felt like the kid was like, hey, I'm gonna take advantage of this. And I wish I would have went back and looked and saw if there was a headstone or something nearby, but 100% real. There was no denying it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people I work with have these experiences, like I think just a lot of people have these experiences.
Mhm.
And we're told it's woo woo or it's our imagination, don't talk about
Mhm.
it. Sometimes there's religious trauma or shame on it. And so I'll I'll meet with clients and I'll be like, your ancestors are telling me that you talk to them all the time and that you have this way of communicating with them, and people be like, oh, yeah, I've never told anybody that.
Mhm.
I said, oh, it's okay. Like a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
And I feel really lucky in that respect to be part of Native community where, like I said, it's really normal. Um, because then I don't have in my life now, I don't have that kind of pushback or shame or, I
Mhm.
used to before I found Native community. There was a lot of that.
Yeah.
I remember kids shoving crosses in my face, being like, you're
Jesus.
evil, like, and I'm like, you don't know anything.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure it came from their own fear and their own religious upbringings, and, you know, but having a community that really supports it and understands it and lives in a similar way makes all the difference,
Yeah.
because then I can go to ceremony and talk about my deceased relatives and say, oh, I've been communicating with my grandma, or this person came to me, or, and I was at one ceremony, we had a talking circle, and my so I was married a long time ago for a half a second, and it was a few years. Um, but my ex-husband passed away, I think a couple of years ago, and I started feeling him around before I knew he had passed. And I was like, this is weird. Like, why am I feeling him? I don't understand. Like, it was a whole thing. And I was like, like, who is this man in my house? I'm like, he's
Yeah.
so different. Who is it? No, there's no way it's him. And then finally I Googled and was like, oh shit. Like, he died. I didn't
Mhm.
know he had died. Right. So I was at a ceremony talking about all this. And I was talking about my marriage to him was very abusive. This man was my abuser. It was very toxic. And one of the elders stood up later and he said, in front of the whole community, and he said, as you were talking, I felt him around and I was very mad at him. I was very, very angry with him.
Mhm.
And he goes, but then he started talking to me and he told me that all of that stuff has changed and that he's not that person anymore, because when he died, all of it like lifts. It's like he's free from his own pain, his own anger, all of these things. And he's apologizing to you. And this elder had this whole experience with him.
Mhm.
And we were both crying, and he gifted me an eagle feather. And it was just like so affirming
Yeah.
in this big ceremonial space with all these Native people witnessing it, you know,
Mhm.
that there's no question to me that it's my imagination. This is real,
Right.
you know?
Mhm.
Um, and that makes a huge difference where when you have people, most people don't have that. Most people are like having experiences, but they don't have a community to hold it. And so it kind of gets like brushed away or brushed aside. Whereas I've been really lucky to have a community that can hold it and does. And so I think that's another place where it 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 gets lost sometimes when
Hmm.
there isn't a community to hold it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and that's so true too. Because my dad died a couple of years ago, and me and him were really close. And I can say to like my cousin or my uncle, like, "Oh, my dad came to me in a dream last night," and their response will be, "Oh yeah, how's he doing?"
Yeah.
You know, it's not like cuckoo. You know, it's like,
Right.
or oh, you just miss him. It's not, they're just like, "Oh, how is he doing? How do you look?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. So, what do you think? Is there something that people could do? Something easy, something they could start tomorrow that could help them connect and or reconnect to this other realm.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is just listening. You know, we spend so much time with noise coming at us, whether it's the news or we're scrolling on our phone or
Mhm.
we're listening to a podcast or the
Yeah.
radio or whatever. There's always like input.
Hmm.
And we don't give ourselves time to just be in the silence.
Right.
We don't have to do anything. It's like you said, it's this conversation with the one.
Hmm.
But you can't have that conversation when there's all this noise and other things coming in. So I
Yeah.
think the first part is just to give ourselves space. And it doesn't have to be a ton of time. It could be
Yeah.
like 5 minutes once a week where you say, okay, this is the time where I'm going to sit down,
Hmm.
I'm going to get quiet, and I'm just going to ask, are there any ancestors? Is there, name a beloved person who's passed and say, oh, can I speak to this person? Like, reach
Hmm.
out. Grandma, are you there? Mom, dad, son, daughter, are you there?
Hmm.
Just listen. And maybe nothing will happen.
Yeah.
Or maybe you'll get goosebumps.
Right.
Or maybe you'll smell something in the air. Or you'll have a thought that feels like them. Right? But
Hmm.
we just have to start by getting quiet and listening.
Yeah.
I had a client who I've worked with for a long time, and one day she said, I think I get it now, Melissa. And I was like, what? Tell me, like, what is the answer? She goes,
Hmm.
I just have to listen. And I was like, exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a simple thing.
Hmm.
And I think that's part of the harm of making it seem supernatural or like it's only for certain people or it's like this woo woo thing or
Yeah.
whatever is that it it's like telling us, oh, we don't have a right to it, we can't do it, and
Yeah.
none of that is true. Or people think some big thing has to happen, like they have to have a near death experience or something.
Hmm.
That's not true. It's really the most natural thing to just sit and listen. I mean, cultures all over the world, including European cultures pre Christianity, right? And there is in mystical Christianity, there is plenty of stories about talking with the unseen world, right? I mean,
Hmm.
Jesus came back from the dead. Let's be,
Right.
there's some unseen world things happening here.
Yeah.
Um, if we really look into those ancestor stories and we really look back, connecting with the dead is like the most normal, natural thing. And so if
Hmm.
we remember that and we act from that place, like, oh, it's just a matter of really just listening. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be some big thing. That's all. It's simple.
Hmm. I think that's when I feel it the most is when I'm making a point to feel it,
Yeah.
when I'm really feeling some kind of way and I'm needing it. And I make sure, and I do. You're right. I have to kind of separate myself from what's going on around me. And we have a full house here, and sometimes I have to get away from these people love you all, but I'm having a moment here. And yeah, and that's when it happens. And I have not, I mean, I'm not as practiced as you, obviously, but I haven't seen images but mine's always just that feeling, just that presence of somebody near me. And that's all I mean, that's enough. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not asking for lottery numbers here. I'm just looking for
Right.
some connection, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, so,
Sometimes if they can't get your attention, they'll go talk to somebody else whose attention they can get. And then they'll say, like, they'll go to an uncle, somebody else, and be like, oh, they had the dream. And
mm,
they have to come and tell you, oh, I had that dream about your dad. He
mhm,
said this and that. He said, you better pay attention.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Because
yeah.
I've had experiences where my ancestors have visited men I was dating, scared the bejesus out of them. They're like, "Who's this big man that looks like a bear?" "Oh, don't worry, that's my great great grandpa. He's fine." Well, he woke me up in the middle of the night and I saw him standing in my bedroom.
Mhm,
Okay, he's checking you out.
mhm.
Right? Or they've gone to my friends, who are really sensitive. And my friends will tell me, your grandma was in my car eating sunflower seeds and spitting them out the window. And I'm like, what? And then I find out, oh yeah, she used to like eat sunflower seeds. That was her thing.
Yeah,
So if we're not listening and they really want to communicate something, they'll find a way.
yeah. That's cool. Yeah, my cousin has called me. I just had a dream about your dad because they were very close too. And yeah, I never thought of it being. I guess it could be both. He's having his own experience with my dad, but also maybe trying to get a message to me too. Um, okay, I think we're getting close to wrapping up. So the name of my show is Native as I Can Be. What kind of what does that title mean to you?
I love that title. And I love it because it really encapsulates that feeling of feeling like I belong, but I'm also an outsider and trying to find that sense of belonging.
Hmm.
I know so many times I felt like, oh, I'm not white enough for this space and I'm not Indian enough for this space, right?
Yeah.
And it's really about just like you said earlier, it's like, oh, I just am Indian,
Hmm.
right? Like I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm just native by my presence in the world, right?
Hmm.
And so that's what it means to me is native as I can be is like just remembering, oh yeah, like I am native and I don't have to put on a show. I don't have to
Hmm.
be anything other than who I am.
Yeah.
And the community that I need will be there. I will find the people that I resonate with, you know. I've had plenty of lateral oppression happen in my life, right? Like it's not all roses and, sunshine. There's
Yeah.
been really hard things that have happened in native community for me.
Yeah.
I've always been able to find that community at the same time that is really loving and really caring.
Yeah.
It's just like anywhere, right? There's
Hmm.
people who we get along with, and there's people who, for whatever reason, we don't understand each other. We miss each other.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make me less native
Right.
or them less native, or
Hmm.
we're just we're native people.
Yeah. I'm trying to see this because this kind of the subtitle is between two cultures, and I'm really trying to switch my thinking that being in between these two cultures doesn't have to be a disadvantage. I'm existing in two of them, which gives me a unique perspective to see both sides. And um, somebody who's maybe only living in one or the other is not getting a whole picture. Um, that's work I'm doing now because I still feel that way. even after all the work and powwows and sweats and everything else, there's still a little bit of imposter syndrome going on.
Totally. I have that too. Still, even though I've had the most incredible experiences in ceremony, I've worked in Native community, I've, been involved for many years now, I still am like, am I Indian enough?
Mhm.
Do I have a right to be here? Do I have a right to take up space in this place? I still have those questions.
Yeah,
That's where talking with my ancestors has been really helpful because they're hilarious, first of all.
yeah.
I always know it's them because they start cracking jokes at my expense. And like my grandma will come and be like, I'm Indian, your mom's Indian, so you're an Indian. Like,
Mhm.
you're fine, just relax.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but that imposter syndrome is so real.
Mhm.
And it's taken me a really long time to understand that that place in between is sacred space. Like those thresholds and
Mhm.
it's like a portal to me. That's how I think,
Yeah,
right? It's a place where we can move in between worlds. And that is a special thing.
totally.
It has its own it has its own power and its own energy. I have like behind me, this is a reindeer hide. And I started my birth father, even though I don't have a relationship with him, he's Norwegian primarily. There's other whiteness in him, other European ancestors, but primarily Norwegian. And I can trace this lineage. And so I started learning about Norwegian culture, and I was really interested in what did Norway look like pre-Christianity, or what did it look like. I'm not Sami. I don't have that I know of have indigenous ancestors in Norway, but there is this connection to the land, to the place. I have ancestors who've been there a very long time, and I wanted to learn about it. And when I started learning, it opened up all these doors to other forms of knowledge and wisdom that I didn't know anything about, that I
Mhm.
also feel connected to. So
Yeah,
now I have this reindeer medicine that's showing up in my life, and that's another powerful piece of medicine that I carry as a Norwegian person.
mhm.
So there's medicine for us in all these places when we really start to look.
Yes, that's really beautiful. Um, I think that's all I had really. What kind of vibe did you get off of me right when we got on the call,
Yeah,
or are you getting now?
I mean, I think even before we got on this call, but like just text, like sending messages back and forth, or when your wife told me about you, I was like, okay, I feel like this is my brother,
Mhm.
right? This is my family. There's just so many things that I felt comfortable. I feel like we have a lot of things in common that we could talk about, these experiences of, where do we fit,
Yeah.
and how do we claim and own our indigeneity? What does that
Mhm.
look like for us? Um, I feel like we share those things in
Yeah.
common, and it's nice to be able to talk to people who understand those things. You know,
Yeah.
you can have a conversation without somebody being like, "Oh, what does that mean?" and "What does that mean?" and what.
Yeah.
I've had therapists like that where I'm like, "Okay, I'm in therapy right now. I can't stop middle of crying and explain this native concept to you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I need to list Laura as like executive producer because I think you're probably like the fifth or sixth guest now that I've had that is from her and it's somebody that she knows um and I haven't even had her on as a guest yet. But
Oh, you'll have to.
yeah, I know. Um and I thought about how the adoption records in Oregon were closed. She had a lot to do with them being open. She
Oh,
went and testified why they should be why those adoption records should be unsealed. that's what I was going to have the episode be centered around.
I would love to hear that story.
Yeah.
I did not know that about her. Tell her.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Well, yeah, this was really cool. I have been looking forward. It's so like I'm talking to you tonight, and this is a completely another weird coincidence. So we're trying to sell our old house, and it's been a real struggle. So
Mhm.
she spoke with someone named Virginia who did a bunch of energy work to get the energy cleared from the house, and she was kicking all this knowledge about there seems like there was a lot of anger in that house and a lot of this and a lot of that, which was 100% true. And then just that ability to pick up on these things. And she she said that I have big energy, and she kept calling it G force. And she said that I should be in public relations. And I was like, well, I don't know about all that, but I do put myself in the public eye because I do extra work and podcasts and this and that and the third thing. But it's so her having that conversation with her happens to be on the same day that I'm having this conversation with you.
Wow.
And yeah, who knows? It's all good though.
It's all connected,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how did I end up with the same name as my sister?
Right.
And there's like my birth mother and my adoptive father have the same birthday, 10 years
Yeah.
apart, but the same date. I have the same birthday as my adoptive mother.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just thing after thing after thing like that. And at some point, you have to be like, okay, this is like too many things to be a coincidence.
Yeah.
All those interconnecting threads coming together, because, like you said, we're manifesting these things.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time. Are you accepting new uh, clients,
Yeah,
and what kind of things do you have coming up?
absolutely. I see clients for one-on-one spiritual care sessions, which are some involve lots of things. It can be channeling, it can be a little bit of tarot reading, it could be writing, it could be just talking, me listening, hearing people's stories, assisting them with just their own spiritual lives and spiritual path. And then those are about an hour long appointment. And then I also do hour and a half tarot readings that are also channeled and involve spirit communication. um, so I have those going on, and I'm definitely taking clients and would love to have folks reach out. They can find me on Instagram at Lost Bird Tarot. And Lost Bird is a whole other native adoptee terminology, for another podcast episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's connected to native adoption. And I love working with adoptees, but I'll work with people from any faith tradition, no faith tradition, questioning, it doesn't matter. But, I love working with Native folks. I love working with adoptees, mixed race people, really everyone.
Yeah. We did discuss briefly doing a reading
Yeah.
as the episode, and I still want to get one. I just don't think I need the world to see it. I feel like I want that to be just for me. So
That's totally fair. And we can totally set up an appointment.
yeah, I do. I really do want to do that because like I've been saying this whole time, I have this strong connection with my son and my dad, and I think my grandpa. But I want something very specific or concrete. Like I'd like to know what it is. That, I don't know. I just miss him.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, yes. Thank you so much for your time. I have had so much fun. This. I say this every episode. This is my favorite episode so far. But,
Hooray for having lots of favorite episodes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was really fun. It was really, really nice talking to you.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.